All right, everybody, welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. I am your host, AJ Armstrong. You can go to my website, aaronjarmstrong.com. That's aaronjarmstrong.com. Today, I am honored and pleased to have an outstanding guest that's going to teach us some of the fundamentals of being your own PR agent. So, my guest today is Jeremy Slate, and he's the founder of Create Your Own Life podcast. This is a show to help people create life on their own terms at a world-class level. He studied literature at Oxford University. As a former champion powerlifter turned to a new media entrepreneur. At the age of 19, Jeremy had a near-death experience as a routine surgery led him to receive last rites from a priest. He recovered and graduated with his master's degree in one of the worst job markets in history. He ended up working 16-hour days painting houses and managing a gym. When he landed his dream job as a teacher, he quickly realized it was not what he wanted to be doing with his life. That's when his entrepreneur journey and the Create Your Own Life podcast was born. The Create Your Own podcast aims to bring world-class people to help mentor his audience and create life on their terms. It's been downloaded over 2.5 million times. Jeremy's interviewed over 500 entrepreneurs he greatly admires, including Grant Cardone, Danica Patrick, Seth Godin, Tucker Max, and Robert Greene. He's been a featured writer for Influencive and Business.com. After his success in podcasting, Jeremy Slate and his wife, Brielle Slate, founded Command Your Brand Media to help entrepreneurs hone their message and impact thousands with the power of storytelling. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews, the only show that's going to teach you
how to be somebody.
Where in your life did you learn that you're not good enough?
Take what you're most passionate about and what you're most fearful of, and what is the plan to overcome that fear, and what is the plan to enact that passion.
Well, welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. I am your host, AJ Armstrong. You can follow me on Instagram at AaronArmstrong33. That's AaronArmstrong33. Or you can go to my website, aaronjarmstrong.com. Coming to me from New Jersey, which is the homeland of my wife, Marissa, is Jeremy Slate. So we got Jeremy Slate on the other end. How are we doing today, brother?
Hey, I'm doing amazing, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. This is so exciting. Incredible entrepreneur we got here, incredible story. And I'm excited to dig into what got you to where you are today, as well as learn a little bit about your history. So Jeremy, brother, bring me back to the beginning. I know you had kind of some early, some really eventful experiences in your life, and I want to hear a little bit about that.
Well, how far do you want me to go back here, man? Because it's like the Beatles say, it's been a long and winding road. You know what I mean? It's like, I think where we end up and where we think we're going to end up are like two totally different things.
Absolutely.
Because my undergrad degree, I have a double major, and I don't recommend anybody do it this way, but I basically got to my senior year and they're like, well, if you take 2 more classes, you can be a double major. So I'm a double major in Catholic theology and biblical history.
Really?
And I was like, okay, what else do you do with this degree? Well, you don't do much with it. Okay, let's go get a master's degree. So then I got my master's degree in ancient history. Once again, not a very applicable skill. There aren't people lining up to hire you for that. So I also did a program at Oxford where I studied British literature. And I was very, very educated with not very many abilities to do in terms of the job world. So I kind of was in a weird situation, man.
What drew you into those degrees, out of curiosity? So Catholic theology, that's interesting.
Yeah, Catholic theology and like I said, a double major. And I actually I did a lot of specialization in Torah, believe it or not. Just
Really?
kind of interesting. I wrote a thesis in my undergrad on all the different sects of Judaism and what they were looking for in a Messiah. Man, it is all over the place. This one's looking for that one. This one's looking for that. So that was just a really interesting study. But I just like the idea of, like, as people, what makes us who we are and what makes our cultures what they are. Because I think you understand a lot more about people and a lot more about different things when you understand people at that level, whether it be their culture, their history, or their religion, or whatever it may be. So it wasn't exactly something I was looking to apply, which, as I said, I wouldn't recommend that to a lot of kids now if that's what you're looking to do school-wise. But for me, I wanted to understand people at a deeper level.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I don't know, my listeners kind of know that I'm a man of Christian faith, and I'm always curious to see how that plays into this. And I don't know where your journey's taken you since then or not, but I'm always curious to see people's upbringing and what they find interesting, because it is just that, like, primal urge to understand where we came from, why are we here, and try to find meaning in all of this, right? Like, we just crave meaning for whatever reason. And I'm
Well,
always curious to see that.
there's something bigger out there than ourselves, and you know, for some of us, I think we all call it something different, whatever that may be. But I think you're kidding yourself if you don't think there's the whole bigger plan at play, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's really cool. So Oxford, dude, that's impressive, right?
Yeah.
Right off the bat. And so you get your undergrad degree, and it's in some pretty deep stuff, quite frankly. You know, to understand this, where you're coming from. So at a young age, you're already craving these bigger answers of what you can accomplish or what you can contribute to this world. So where'd you go from there?
So I actually ended up, and it's funny because you asked me earlier before we started recording about my near-death experience. That actually happened way before this, but didn't really change my life. But I guess we can get into that in a bit.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And so I guess when I was 19, I was playing football, playing corner, and I was in my 5-yard back pedal, and stepped in a drain, tore 3 major ligaments in my knee, ended up on the ground, couldn't stand up, and I'm just kind of like, what's going on? Because when you hurt something that severely, it just doesn't really hurt. You can't feel anything. And I went to have a surgery to fix that, and I ended up having an issue with like breathing. Basically, my lungs started shutting down, my heart started shutting down, my whole pulmonary system was like all messed up. And I found out later on it was something was done incorrectly by the doctors, but it was, you know, well after the statute of limitations we found out about that. But it was a weird experience, man. Like I was in and out of consciousness for 3 days. I, you know, didn't really know like where I was. The priest actually came in and gave me last rites. I had this like out of body experience. Like, man, it was some freaky stuff happening. And then just 3 days in, everything just changed and it was back to normal. And it was really weird, and the doctors couldn't explain it. And like I said, I found out later on why that was. They were trying to legally protect themselves. But you know, it was a very weird situation, and it didn't change my life at all. I just kept going on that exact same trajectory.
Really? So that you didn't change anything from that at 19 years old.
Nothing. And it's your wife will appreciate this if she's from New Jersey, but I just remember getting done, and I've been an athlete my whole life, very strict dieter. Just remember getting done. I'm like, oh, I just want my Taylor ham sandwich. So I wanted that. In Jersey, it's like a really big deal. Outside of New Jersey, they have no idea what you're talking about. But I just remember like that was what it came down to, and that's all I wanted.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things like that in Jersey, right? The pork roll, you know, like the.
If you're from South Jersey, you call it pork roll. North Jersey, you call it Taylor ham.
Oh, okay, so she's a South Jersey girl. So
Central Jersey does not exist. It's not real.
And it's like an hour drive anyway, you know, for me in the big state. No, that's awesome. Well, that's interesting. So you'd think that, you know, going through something like that, it would at least confirm some of your beliefs or something like that. But I mean, so you just think it didn't change your life, but perhaps it launched you. I mean, that's a significant event to go through as a 19-year-old.
Pretty significant. And the reason I mention that to bring it back around is when I was 24, then I almost lost my mom. She had a really bad stroke. I was coming home from the gym one day I worked at the gym as the weekend manager, and my boss called me to come in early, and I was like, oh, you know, like I was mad and this and that, you're making me come in early, and if she didn't, I wouldn't have found my mom. And then I ended up actually finding her when I came home. And that experience, because it was outside of myself, really changed a lot of my viewpoints and made me look at a lot of things differently. I had been teaching for about a year at that point after I got out of school. And it made me question a lot of like what I was doing. Like, why am I doing it? What's the purpose to what I'm doing? Like, what's the impact I want to make? And I'll tell you what, man, like I was a little paralyzed. It took me about a year to actually make a move and do something different. But it was that thing being outside of myself and not being me, because I think a lot of times we think we're invincible, that made me look at life a little bit differently and make some decisions a little bit differently.
Wow. I want to come back to that. But first I want to talk to a little bit of your business experience and how you kind of got into the entrepreneurship space. And later I'll follow up with some, maybe more of that purpose and fulfillment and meaning side of it.
Totally. Well, as I said, it's kind of like a Beatles song, man. It's a long and winding road. But, you know, the first thing that I actually ended up jumping into in 2013 was network marketing, which I'm from a small town, 5/8 of a mile in size. Like nothing really happens there. So I didn't know what this was. I saw this presentation. I'm like, I'm going to make $1 million like next week. Why is nobody doing this? And, you know, I was pretty successful at it, but I didn't like the person that I had to become to be successful at it. I don't know how familiar you are with the network marketing space.
Yeah, I'm very familiar. I don't participate in it, but I work with people frequently that are in that space. And I'm just curious, what do you mean? Like, you know, the person you have to become, it's just inauthentic, or what does that look like?
It was, and maybe it was for me. I don't know if it's that way for everybody, but I became very inauthentic, because you're looking at every conversation of, oh, well, what are they missing in their life so I can sell them my opportunity? And I think it could be that way with anything you're doing, you know, whether it's a startup, whether it's something new that you're trying to push across the table. But for me, I didn't like the person I became to do that.
There's
So
something like aggressive about the
yeah,
network marketing style, though. Like for me, I try to like almost like my close friends. I don't talk a lot of business with. I talk about like ideas and stuff like that, but I don't sell my immediate friends.
right.
And I think that's where like a lot of the pressures of network marketing go wrong. Is they
Mhm.
like immediately are like, look at your inner circle, go through your Facebook list, all this stuff. It's like, dude, they just want to hang out with you. They just want to
Right.
drink a beer. They just, they don't want to sit there and be sold on something. Find the people that are interested in that product, that like really need that thing, and get outside of it. But like, that's the premise of the network marketing, is look at your network. Right. So I can totally see what you're saying there.
But the thing I will say is it's one of the best boot camps in business you can ever go through, being somebody that, like, I was a teacher. Like, I didn't really know anything, didn't have any business experience. So it taught me a lot of hard skills, like, running meetings, making phone calls, doing a lot of
Sure.
these different things that I had no life experience doing. And did it push some people away? Absolutely. And I do regret some of that. But at the same time, it was a really good barometer as well, because it showed me who would be supportive if I tried to do something bigger. So in the same way, it also helped you weed out some of the wrong people. So I did that for a couple years, made some money. It was pretty good at it, but like I said, I just didn't like the person I had to become to do that. And I actually tried a bunch of different things then. I sold products on Amazon for a little bit, but left the $1 promo code on my listing and lost all 200 of my products in about 20 minutes, which was not good.
Oh
So
my god.
so from there, I actually ended up watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos on how to write HTML and CSS, and I ended up working at a friend's web design firm. I taught myself how to build websites, and it was during that time that I started a podcast as a hobby called Rock Your Life. It was absolutely atrocious, and I quit about 60 days in, and later that year, like 6 months down the road, I started Create Your Own Life, which is what launched me into everything else in the media company and what we've been doing now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
incredible, man. So when you're looking at, let's talk about your media company a little bit. So let's talk about your podcast. Let's go a little bit technical too. Like, what aspects of your podcast did you find people really gravitated to? What did you find was helpful in making it successful? That kind of thing.
Well, I think early on it's about the law of numbers, because we did 10,000 listens in our first 30 days as being relatively unknown. Like, I didn't have a social media following, I didn't have an email list. I just took a lot of action. So I messaged a whole bunch of people on LinkedIn. I made a whole bunch of phone calls. I grabbed anybody's phone that I could find. I got them subscribed to the show, and a lot of that early action propelled it. But something I also did differently from that first show that I had is I took it more like professional. I took a course on how to do it. I did quality graphic design because it was important, so I paid for it. I also made a list of the top 100 people that I most admired and actually reached out to them, because I think that's one of the things that scares a lot of people too, is they're like, oh, well, that name's too big, or that person's too important. They're not going to give me the time of day. They're not going to do the interview.
Sure.
The first person I had emailed was Seth Godin, and he said no, but when you get to 400 episodes, let me know. So we got to 390. I let him know, and he was episode number 400. But you have to be willing to reach out to those people and start quality, especially when you have no following. And you have to not, be okay with getting that no. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
So
you've had some impressive people you've connected with. Seth Godwin, Grant Cardone. Who else is on that list? I mean,
I'm a huge sports fan too, so I'm always reaching out to athletes. Like, I have three-time Indy 500 champion Elio Castroneves. He's only one of 4 people in history to do that. Platinum recording artist Modest Yahoo. Who else have I had?
did you get Danica Patrick?
I had Danica Patrick.
How do you get Rogers on now, dude?
I'm telling you, man. I'm working on it. I'm working. As I told you, but when we started here, I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. Actually, my 13-month-old's Aaron Rodgers jersey is actually in the mail and should arrive later today. And is a child-sized jersey. So we're still working on that, man. I've had AJ Hawk on, which is really cool, and AJ actually introduced me to former Ohio State coach Jim Tressel. So a lot of it's been working as well, and I just find athletes and people outside of business actually have amazing insights that are very applicable to business and life.
Yeah, I 100% agree. This is incredible. So taking action, I think, is the huge note here, and more specific strategic action. So like when you're coming up with strategies or thoughts, I mean, is this just like, what's your process? Do you just mind mapping? You just trial and error? Or do you have like a system, a thought process of how you want to go about this?
Initially, it was just taking a lot of action and just forgetting that sometimes it hurts. So I was initially using something called Email Hunter, where you can put in, and it's now called hunter.io, but you can basically put in any web address and it'll show you any existing emails at that site. And what I was doing was trying to find the person I wanted to interview's email at that site. And that was initially how I got a lot of my interviews set up, by talking to the person that I wanted to talk to. And then it was networking as well. As I got more high-level guests, they introduced me to high-level guests. And, as we run a PR firm now, learning the PR game was a really big deal as well, because you get to a certain level of guests and you're not going to get them that way. So we just had, we're in talks right now with getting Zappos CEO Tony Hsieh on the show. And we just got to know from, I think, Roger Federer's team. So, but the idea is knowing like how to actually talk to those people, because sometimes it's kind of cool who you can get a know from. So one of the biggest things I learned is there's a couple online places to find that information. One being IMDb Pro, if you're looking for people that have been in movies, which is Internet Movie Database. Another one being Contact Any Celebrity, because there's kind of a game to how to get a celebrity, right? Like a lot of times you're not going to get them directly. You have to know like who to talk to. Like you don't want to talk to a speaker agency, because
Right.
speaking agencies get paid anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 a gig. So they're going to say, oh, this interview costs you money. If you talk to the right person, it shouldn't cost you money. But it's about finding either their assistant, their publicist, or their manager. And in that order, the assistant's going to be easier than the publicist and the manager. So then what I really found out is how to talk to those people and how to contact those people, either be through cold call or having my team do it or whatever it may be. And as I said, my process started early on with, how can I get that person? And as I've learned more about the space, it's kind of gotten to be more of a method over the years.
What's like the pitch that these people are looking for the most part? Like what are they? Is it all just downloads, numbers, or is it?
And it's actually not downloads and numbers. A lot of it's actually the caliber of the show. Like iTunes Top 100 show matters. Like people have cared about that. But the other thing that I've found is as I built my brand more, meaning I've done more speaking, I've grew my accounts, I've done all this other stuff, that's actually mattered quite a bit, because they want to have, and this isn't to toot my own horn, but they want to have celebrities interviewing celebrities, because it,
Right.
it enhances their credibility. So it's not always about that. And also like the impact that you're making, like the impact that you want to make. I want to interview people that are world class at what they do and help others to do that. There's people that'll buy into that and that really care about that, like I do. So even that purpose is bigger than, so I want to have you on a podcast and we're just going to talk about anything. Like it's not really a guided thing, and it doesn't really have an end product or end purpose. So having that purpose also is a really big thing that people buy into.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think that's interesting, because when you understand, I think if you have a story is what sells, right? Like having some type of story and some kind of intention and purpose and moral to the story. So like getting those types of things for someone that might be starting out with this, or even me in my spaces, I'm, you and I connected, you're an awesome guest for our show. You got a great, background and following, and you got a really good message and a story to tell. But as I'm trying to find different guests too, this is helpful to know, like, what are these people looking to say? So like, for example, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio might want to talk about global warming, right?
Right.
So it's like,
exactly.
if you have that forum and you know what their message is, how can I facilitate their message? And the speech I used to do on networking, we used to talk about this as the art of jujitsu, right? So in jujitsu is the martial art where you use the opponent's momentum to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
How can you use that, in networking? How can you use what somebody else is already trying to do and help them facilitate their journey, right? So I think that was...
It's really interesting too, because it's like, one of the things, and the right way to ask it is so-and-so doing media right now? Because also every time you reach out, somebody might not be doing media. Like it's just, it depends on if they have something they're working on. So like you were just talking about, knowing what's interests somebody. So like here's something that's like Dan Carlin, Hardcore History, is one of my favorite podcasts. I'm finally interviewing Dan next week. And the reason he's doing it is because he has a book coming out. Or actually the book's already out and I'm listening to the audio version. But that was a reason for 4 years he told me no, but now he's got something to promote, so it makes sense. Or like today's episode was with Derek Sivers, who's the guy that started CD Baby. And I was really excited to talk to him, but he told me no. And finally my assistant said, okay, well, what would make this interview a yes? He goes, well, if we don't talk about business and we talk about stoicism, journaling, and how travel can change your life, I'll do it. I'm like, great, we'll do it. So it's also like knowing like what is going to make this a yes for you as well.
Interesting. I think that's really good advice. And that kind of segues to a little bit into just this next piece of the conversation that I want to take this to is, you have a podcast. How did you turn that into an actual like PR company?
So what we actually did, and it's funny because I find the first version of what you do is not usually the best version or what ends up keep going. We started this like podcast in a box thing. And when I say podcast in a box, I was like cray cray. Like basically, we built your WordPress website. We did all your social media if you didn't have it. We edited your episodes. We did your graphic design. We published. We set up the interviews. I also wrote the format for the interviews, and then we did an awareness campaign where we got other podcasts. That's insane. That's a lot of stuff. So what we actually found is our clients really enjoyed. They loved the podcasts, and we hooked up with some really quality guests, but they actually enjoyed the most and got the most ROI off going on other shows. So my wife's been in PR for about 10 years. So what we ended up doing is her and I actually partnered up in more than just a marriage way. And we've been running this company together, and we've brought on an amazing team over the years. I think we're somewhere around 11 people now at this point in time. And what we've been able to do is take a look at what we do through the eyes of podcasting and PR. So we've taught a lot of our clients about like positioning strategy, about like what to say on a show, about what to do with the show, content repurposing. And we've really just doubled down on that. Like, how can the right shows help you, and how can you help those audiences? And then how can you create more attention from how you repurpose the content? Because I find that's the biggest thing a lot of people are missing is they don't know what to do with an episode once it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So we teach a lot about content marketing, whether that be on LinkedIn or whether that be on Facebook or email marketing, whatever it may be. Because I know as a host, I love when people get my content out there. And that's also going to help you as the guest.
What have you found to be some of the best ways to repurpose your content, or what is your go-to?
Right now, like long form storytelling on LinkedIn is really, really good. Meaning that, you write a line, skip a line, write a line, skip a line, because it's more readable on mobile, where it tells a story that has to do with, what you're talking about, like basically maybe a story you told in the interview. So that's doing really well. They were favoring video for a while, but now they're back to favoring plain text posts, which means your link to that interview is going to be in the first comment to that post. But right now, I'm finding LinkedIn to really be one of the best things out there. Something else we're having clients do as well is, are you familiar with Facebook retargeting pixels?
My assistant is. I don't do much with Facebook pixels.
So
But
what you do is
I know what they are.
you put a pixel on your website, and it basically puts everybody that's been to your website in a bucket. And then what you do is you take those podcast interviews and make them as boosted posts to that audience that's already been seeing you. So it's actually like helping them along their journey to possibly working with you or awareness, or whatever it may be.
What do you think are like kind of the overly emphasized social networks, and what do you think is like the more emerging one?
And I'm just going from personal experience right now. I find that
Sure.
Facebook, the interaction, unless you're paying for it, has gone way, way down. And even what you're paying for is going down. And the thing that I've heard from a lot of ad buyers is and it's the reason that Facebook actually brought on stories, is they're having trouble with enough places to show all the ads that their people are paying for. So right now I'm finding Facebook to be somewhat worthless. We're getting a lot of attention from LinkedIn, is probably my number one network by a lot, meaning I'm getting 5,000 to 10,000 views on a post. And we're getting a decent amount on Instagram. But I'm finding Facebook and Twitter to kind of be the bottom two right now. LinkedIn is by far the biggest and best network to be on at this time.
Have you noticed Instagram going down significantly in engagement as well?
Yeah, my engagement in the last 6 months has been like absolutely crushed. Like I was getting like 1,500 to 2,000 engagements on a post, and I've got like 32,000 followers. So just to give you an idea what that ratio looks like, to now, like if it's getting 500, it's a good day. Like I found engagement's been absolutely crushed on that platform. I don't know what's changed.
Yeah, I imagine it's the same thing. That's kind of what, as we've kind of speculated, the strategy as well. It looks like they're trying to take a cut of, a lot of the influencers' pie here, right? They're trying to get, you're an influencer, okay, now you're going to pay for it. You were getting too much for free, basically.
Well, there was an article I was reading the other day about this, and that part of the issue is they're upset with the individual influencers that are actually selling their posts, and they're like, oh, well, we want a cut of that. So I don't know in the future if they'll figure out a way to. That's probably why they've released the whole branded content thing. So I'm interested to see where that goes.
What advice do you give to somebody that might be starting out with a personal branding experience and just getting them off the ground, getting them moving, and starting to get to the point where they can have a foundation and a platform?
Well, the biggest thing is, to start with your website, because I think a lot of people don't have the right things in their website, meaning you have an About Us page, have a media page to feature all the media that you're going to be getting, and also have your one sheet and all that other important stuff on your site, as well as your copy on that site should be written in third person, because people that are opinion leaders don't typically write about themselves, and you're making it easier for media to talk about you if it's written in third person. So that's kind of the first thing you need to have. The second thing you need to have is what makes you different, because there's too many people saying the exact same thing, and we see this in the podcast world, we see this in the social media world. So figure out what is different and special about what you have to talk about, because if it's not different and special, then, kind of keep your mouth shut until you figure out what makes you different and special, because you're not going to stand out. And it's just going to be very hard to get more media attention. It's going to be very hard to stand out in your market. And then the third thing here that a lot of people miss, and it just blows my mind. I'm from a small town. I've said this before, 5/8 of a mile in size, called Hamburg, New Jersey. Used to have trains there. It doesn't. Babe Ruth used to play golf there. He is now dead, so not much happens there. So the cool thing for that is it's what I like to call a small pond, meaning if you do things in that small pond that are interesting around your business and you write them as press releases to your smaller local newspapers that have an online version as well, they're going to print it. And that's going to give you some ways to fill up that media page early on and build some credibility before you start reaching out to other media or podcasts or whatever it may be. And building that credibility as a personal brand is absolutely huge, because most people aren't doing it, and they don't think on a local level as well. Like, what is your small pond? It could be your, like I said, small newspaper. We had one that went to every house in our county on a Thursday. Not much happens. If you write the press release up, send it in, they'll probably print it. Your Rotary group, your university, your high school, whatever it may be, these different places that can run stuff and get you some initial press features so you can fill up that media page and start having some credibility, and then start reaching out to smaller and mid-level podcasts and TV media and things like that. But that's kind of the pathway to really, standing out as an influencer, as a brand.
That's interesting. So you're basically saying, kind of that advice we always get, that blossom where you're planted. And if you can get media attention, regardless of how large or small it is, I think it's important that it's a third party media entity that is featuring you as the person here, because that's what's going to start to build up your authenticity. Because I know, especially when some of my clients start out, one of the things they struggle with, and I struggled with this as well, was like, how do you build a personal brand without talking about yourself? Because you're just going to completely look like an asshole then. So it's like, how do I do this to where somebody else is talking about me, but I'm actually doing things still worth talking about, right?
Well, it's an interesting balance, though, too, because you want the media talking about you, but the content you're creating on social media should be written in first person. Because if let's say you're telling people you have to do this and you need to do that and you need to think this way. My good friend Robert Sislo Jr. is really big on how he talks about this. But when it should actually be your own personal stories of, this happened to me 6 years ago and this is what I learned and blah, 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 blah. On social media, that makes sense, and that makes people understand and be able to take your message. Whereas when you're saying you're creating an instant resistance. But in actual media, meaning places that are online and places that are in newspapers or magazines, whatever they may be, that third party credibility is vital. So it's kind of different in those two places, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally get it. And let's go back to the media side of this. How do you, what tactical advice would you give on someone? So you can reach out to local, newspapers and press releases, but what are journalists interested in writing about? Why would they want to write about me as a brand?
Well, the biggest thing you want to do is you want to pitch them a story idea. Like,
Okay.
This is what I was thinking, or this is the purpose we have, or these are, here's a great piece. And a writer for, one of these online publications, they want to have something that teaches a lesson. So if you come to them with a title already written, there's different websites where you can check how well a title will rank, and then say, hey, these are the 3 to 5 things that you need to know about, let's say, getting online media, which I don't know if they're going to want to cover that as much, because that's actually doing what they do. So let's say here's the 3 to 5 things that you need to know about actually using paid traffic that no one else is doing. So if you're actually giving them something like that and also showing them that you have credibility on why you can say that with the local press or other press that you've gotten, they're going to be interested in writing about that. Because as sad as it is, media doesn't want to be the first one that takes a risk on you. That's why it's really important to kind of get that local piece or some other press credibility before you start pitching media. Because if they see, other people have already said you're cool, then they're going to kind of, that story you pitch them, they're going to be a little bit more interested because you're a safer play.
Yeah. So position yourself as an authority based on media. I think that's pretty sound advice. I really like that advice, because if I'm thinking about somebody I might buy from, whoever that might be, or whatever, I'll go on their website. I'm gonna be much more convinced when I see, featured in Forbes magazine, featured in Fortune magazine, those types of things, than nothing, or than just testimonials or just whatever they're saying about themselves. So it's like, I think the game is to position yourself to an authority enough to get that kind of publicity, right?
Well, and you have to understand it's stairs and and there's not an elevator, if you know what I mean. Like get your local, to get your regional, to get your, bigger stuff, and then go for your Forbes and your Inc. and whatever it may be. And you may get lucky and get one of those features early on, but you have to realize that there's stairs to getting there. There's no elevator. And
Yeah.
it's going to work that way for 95% of people.
So as far as creating the story that you want to tell, so I think, when you look at a story, there's really three elements that I think I talk about a lot, and that's just the conflict, characters, conclusion. And how do you go about identifying the stories that you want to tell as a marketer, as a PR agent, that kind of thing?
Well, the way we actually do it is we use a method we call story, message, call to action, meaning your personal story, your 3 to 5 teachable points, and then what you want people to do at the end. So we actually work it backwards. Like, where do you want this to end up? Like, what is the result you want to happen at the end of this? And it may not be on this particular interview, this particular media place, but it's going to lead people down a certain journey that you want them to take. And then we actually work it through. All right, so what are the 3 to 5 key teachable points? So let's say if you're teaching people about LinkedIn, you're not going to tell every single part of your story because it's just not going to be relevant to what you're actually doing now. So that's what's really important. You teach those, you take those teachable points and you work them back then to what part of your stories work. And you want to find the story of transformation in your own story that's going to show people, hey, I can do this because, hey, I've been that person, or I've been there, or I've helped people like you. Because I find one of the biggest struggles for people is they say, okay, well, I'm able to help people do that, but I've never actually done it myself. So you need to find out where you've helped somebody else transform. But the stories of transformation are powerful because it shows people that what you're going to teach them will actually work, and you actually are getting permission to be able to teach them. And that's really what that story element does, is it kind of sets the whole thing up of where you were and how that's relevant to what you're doing now, and it actually gives you the credibility to teach what you're teaching now. So if you don't have parts of your story that give you the credibility, then you're going to have a real problem marketing that product or service or getting attention for that product or service. And honestly, that's why I personally hit a lot of problems with the coaching industry, because there's a lot of people in coaching that are like, I'm going to sell you a $20,000 program, but I've never actually done it myself.
Right.
That's a huge problem. And that's why I think people that are in the coaching and mentoring industry that have done it are the ones you want to go after to work with, because that personal story lines up with what they're actually doing now, and it actually gives them a lot more credibility. So you want to find out what parts of your story give you credibility to teach what you're teaching, and then how that then takes somebody through that, journey to becoming a customer or fan or follower.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the coaching industry, because that's a big frustration point of mine, right? You see a lot of people that are just kind of like, whatever that you want to call them, they may be creative and they might be good at working with people, and they just, now it's become very saturated where they call themselves a coach, and they're getting advice from other people that are coaches for coaches. And it's become this essentially this pyramid scheme.
There's coaches that coach coaches while they coach coaches that build courses to teach you on how to build courses to sell courses. Anyway.
Right. And that's like, a lot of people don't want that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to leave my last coach, was because that's what he did. He was like a coach for coaches. And it's like, I don't, coaching is something that's a very small piece of my income stream, where you pride myself in making a majority of my income doing real estate investments and a small business consulting. Like, that's where I think the money is made. And when other people haven't created wealth in, like, I will say, a real way, not that, running a coaching course or a program isn't a real way, but running a course just to teach you how to make money, what are you actually doing? What have you done? And especially for like masculine men, I've noticed, or a masculine style thinker, they want someone that's like competent, that's gotten results, and that they want to be like somebody that they have seen do it. Right. So like,
that's the thing for me, man. Like, if I know you can get the result that I want to get, I'll pay you. Like, that's not a problem, because I don't want to pay for some airy, like, I'll feel better about the money and I'll decide it'll have it and there it'll be great, blah, blah, blah. No, I need to know the method. I need to know what you did. I need to know how I can do it to kind of make that result. And I guess maybe that's just my own thought process on it, but there's some pretty incredible coaches out there. Like, one of my good friends helped to scale a company to 9 figures. And now he coaches other people on how to get their companies up to the level he did. Well, I'd say he's pretty legitimately able to do that. And that's where I think the difference is. And I'm not hating on these people that aren't, but at the same time, like, you're taking advantage of people if you're not, teaching them something you actually know how to do.
Right. Exactly. And it's very easy, especially in an age of, and we could talk about this a little bit deeper, but there's this mass marketed spirituality, I think. And we hide behind this mystical energy, you could say, where spiritual coaches, I think, are taking advantage of people, and they're merging religion and psychology into this spiritual arena. And it's so unknown to most people that it's very easy to stand behind and say, this is the key to success.
Mhm.
And it's like that kind of thing, I think, is what's polluting this industry. It's
Well, this
polluting the
whole,
industry of people who want to become fulfilled in meaning, right?
yeah, there's a whole like thing going on right now with manifesting money and stuff like that. It's like, like show me the how, and if I have a valuable final product, then that means I can actually, and I have the right help and the right guidance, and I can do it. But I think at the same time, you're taking advantage of the everyday, brand new business person or American that doesn't want to put in a ton of effort to get that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like so I've been investigating these claims because I see it just pop into my newsfeed all the time. So like this idea of manifesting money, right? What makes sense to me is the power of focus, the power of, you could say like these spiritual, set an intention or whatever. But I say really, if you're focusing in on a goal and you're consistently trying to find solutions towards achieving that goal, then yes, then you can see an opportunity to create wealth.
Sure.
But the idea of like meditating and and all of a sudden money will flow into your bank account doesn't make sense to me. Like there needs to be things that you do, like you need to go do them, right?
Exactly. And I think it's a balance, because I think at the same time, if you have too much counter intention on something, it won't happen because you've decided it won't happen. Like there's a balance between, a positive outlook and knowing you can make it happen, and actually having the know-how and how to make it happen. One without the other isn't going to work. You know what I mean? Like you have to have the positive intention and the know-how, because those things work together. Or if you just have the positive intention, well, you don't have the know-how, it's not going to work. Or if you just have the know-how, but you think you're going to fail, you're going to make yourself right. So it's kind of a thing where you have to have both halves of it.
Yeah, I just told people the same thing at a speech where it was, you have two things that stop you in reality, right? You're either a fear kind of thing, right, that stops you. And I think a lot of soft coaches gravitate and they hold on to that because it's much more ambiguous. And then there's just a knowledge gap. There's just like what do I actually need to accomplish? And I call that soft coaching versus hard coaching. And in reality, there's probably a mix that people need. But I think so many people dive onto this like soft coaching side of it. And there's like, oh, well, it's just fear is your problem. It's like, no, I just don't know how to set up my spreadsheet. Like I just need to know the exact columns to go through and how to calculate this. And I think we'll be good to go. But it's like, I think that was one of the things that I'm glad you talked about. And it kind of rolls into my next question too, of like, you mentioned that you kind of studied, Catholic theology. What is your faith look like now? Or does it exist at all?
So I have an interesting view on things. I'm just more of a spiritual person. I wouldn't say that I'm, as religious as I was growing up. I recognize that, I'm a spiritual being, but I don't really have a, like real, I guess, religious practice anymore.
Yeah. Do you, and if you're comfortable talking about this, we can talk about it. But, I was just kind of curious on how you bring that into your life and your business.
It's really about keeping ourselves on purpose, which I think if you have a good purpose and you want to help people the right way, I think that's really important. So that's really what it is keeping my own ethics in the right position and really, being somebody that's willing to do things the right way. Because I think your personal ethics really make a ton of sense, right? Like if you don't have personal ethics, you're going to do a lot of the wrong things, and you're going to do a lot of the wrong things for money. So that's really how I look at that.
What's your opinion on money in general? Just like, people who idolize it or people that might chase it too much versus understanding the reason why you need money or why you want to achieve it.
Did you ever read the book Atlas Shrugged?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's one of my favorite books, and it's a really long book. But in the book, there's a character named Francisco de Anconia, and he's like a mega billionaire in the book. And he says that, and I'm in total agreement with this. It's not money that is the root of all evil, but is the love of money that is the root of all evil. I think people fall in love with the idea of money and not the idea that money is actually an energy unit, and it can help us achieve a lot of things, and it can help us make a lot of the things we want to happen. So I don't think by itself it is a bad thing. I think it's actually a really great thing, and it helps us create a lot of value and create a lot of things, because you can say you don't need money, but you're lying to yourself, because in this world you need it to make things happen. But I think at the same time, if you fall in love with the idea and the concept of money, then that can also corrupt a lot of people.
Yeah, I've seen that corrupt a lot of people too. And the way you say it, I think is exactly right. It's just, I think you need to emphasize exactly how you said it too.
Mhm.
It's like, it's not money that's evil. It's the love of money.
Correct.
And people might think like, oh, I don't really love money. It's like, well, let's take a step back and look at your life. What are you doing? Some people like will refuse to, stop doing something that they know they're not aligned with, that they know isn't right for them, that they know isn't a good thing, because they just are, they need that paycheck, they need that thing to come in. Or it's
Mhm.
like some people will just give up everything they have so they can achieve some level of status with
Yeah.
the money hierarchy, right? So it's like, I think you need to understand, like, do you really, when you say you don't love money, do you really not love money?
Mhm.
And I think that's what's the most important conversation to have with that.
Well, and as I said, it's a tool, man. It's something you need, and sometimes you need a lot of it to achieve what you want to achieve. But like, if you just think that you're going to sit there and count your money and be happy, that's great. But to say you don't need it at the same time is a bit ridiculous. Like in this world, you need it to make things happen.
So let's circle back to when we were talking earlier about your mother, and you had witnessed her having a stroke, and you were like 24 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
What changed for you there when you look at your perspective? When did your purpose kind of fulfill, come into your life?
Well, I kind of looked at this and I'm like, what the hell, man? Like you can kind of die at any minute here. And like I said, when it wasn't me, when it was me, it didn't change me because it was, I don't know, I feel like you're invincible or whatever. I was 19 years old. And I think when it's somebody outside of yourself, like a parent, it does make you kind of look at it and be like where is this going? What's the bigger plan? Like what's the bigger impact I want to make? And that was really the gears that started changing for me. And it's funny because I don't feel like there's a bigger thought process to it than that. As it was this idea, this decision, and then it was kind of a self actualization through that. Like you keep trying things until you think you're there, and it's something you're working on every day. But I think the fact that it was a parent and not that somebody, not me directly, it made me look at things a lot differently.
So what was the fear that came up? Like, I think you're facing your mortality in a way through vicariously through another person.
Well, at the
What?
same time, you're looking at it and you're like I love my parents and they're amazing, but I don't want to be them. You know what I mean?
Mm,
You kind of look at that and you're like, but I'm going down that exact same path. And it's not to say that anything they've done is wrong, but like we have different ideas on the big effect that we want to make, and they're very supportive, and that's awesome. But in that period, it made me look like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be this small town person that I don't want to be, and I want to make a big impact, and I want to change the world, and I want to do these things. But in my current position, I can't do that. So it kind of made me like really realize like, hey, you could lose this mission. Like it could happen. And it had always been something I thought about. I had always thought about like I'd always been a big thinker, but I always kind of pushed that aside. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Like just understanding like there's more to contribute here. Like I better get off my ass and go do it.
Exactly. Because somebody else isn't going to do it. I got to be the one to do it.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Well, okay, so tell me about just what you've got, going on in your business, or what you're actively kind of working on here in the next few months. What does that look like?
The biggest thing right now is we've been growing our team. We just hired another publicist to our team. I hired a director of sales in August, which has been one of the best things I've ever done. Is we've had um, two of our highest income months in a row in our history since 2016. So that's been really cool.
Yeah,
We've been
I'd say.
grabbing really cool bookings for our clients. It's just been awesome. So really now it's about growing the team because we've realized in the last 4 years like what our service looks like, what's the best version of it, and now it's just kind of getting more energy behind that.
What is the best version of it? Like what is one of the big values that you rally around as a company?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because there's kind of two different levels of people we would service. Somebody that's brand new to what they're doing, and we can really help them because they have nothing established. So we can help them get a lot of the right things in place, help them build the credibility and things if they don't really have a ton going on. And then there's a different caliber of person where they have a lot of achievement, but they actually need the right positioning. So we've been able to get really high quality bookings for our clients, but also in the back end of that, like help them with the storytelling process, man, because
Hmm.
like the storytelling and how you do it is so vital. And then also that call to action after, because it's about building your email list. It's about building your tribe. It's about building a lot of what you're doing off of that, and realizing that the end of that interview is not the end product. It's, how can you use this to build your brand, and how can you use this to, get more traffic out there and get more backlinks and a lot of these different things. So like I said, it's two different levels of people that we're servicing, which is pretty awesome. And it's really just realizing what each one of them needs and helping give them the best version of what they need.
Which one do you find is easier to work with, or does it matter?
The more established people I honestly find are a little bit easier to work with. And that's just been really because they understand PR a little bit more.
Yeah.
If we really take a lot of time to help somebody understand PR, I find like they get the best experience. But you're going to get your, 1 out of 100 people that no matter how much time you help them to understand how PR works and how that strategy works, they just don't get it. And it happens, man. It's that way in any business. So I find the ones that truly grasp the value of PR and like that, you can spend traffic for days, but if you don't have the right PR, that traffic's going to keep costing you money and not get you leads in the end. So you need a lot of that right positioning so that your marketing's more successful and everything else you're doing. The way I like to explain it is, let's say you're a chiropractor in a small town and there's 5 other chiropractors in that town. You're open less hours, you cost twice as much money, and you're harder to get to than everybody else. Yet you're the one making more money and more business in that place because you're speaking at the right conferences, you're on the right podcast, you're doing the right PR. And despite the fact that there are 5 other chiropractors in that town, you are the only game in town because you are the go-to expert. And I think when people understand that and grasp that shift, that's the difference right there. And that's where PR is really valuable.
Yeah, just the power of just that conscious awareness of others, right? So like just being in their thoughts and being actively engaged with people and your market and your ideal clients or customers. Wonderful. Last question for you as we wrap up here, brother, is just what kind of, talk to the person that might be wanting to go through a transition in their life. It might be like, I'm ready to go start a new business venture. I might be graduating college, might be getting out of the military, whatever that looks like. What advice would you give to them to set them up for success?
Well, this is what I would say to you, honestly. And it's just a very simple thing. Like, if you don't do it, who else is going to do it? Because I think too many times we don't do something and then we're like, oh, well, somebody else will do it. Nobody else has your unique viewpoint, your unique way of doing it. So if you don't do it and if you don't help the people that you need to help, nobody's going to help them. So you really need to kind of get outside of yourself, get out of your own way and help those people.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Well, is there any way that our listeners can engage with you, can connect with you, can stay connected?
Absolutely.
How so?
So if they go over to commandyourbrand.media/7 reasons, and they can either do the word 7 or the number 7, we'll find them. You'll give them the exact 7 reasons why nobody knows you online and what you need to know to get yourself out there, get more attention, and start building your brand. Some of the things we spoke about today, some of them we didn't. So that's commandyourbrand.media/7 reasons.
Awesome, dude. That was huge. And I think I want to thank you again for coming on the show and just like giving incredible amounts of value in the world of PR marketing, because it's just like I'm going through this journey too, as my platform is growing enough to where I got to start being aware of it. So this is very helpful to me. And I think there's a lot of other people listening that, are in one of those 2 spots, so they might be in a very established position and it's just about, like you said, positioning themselves to be marketable. And then there's also the people that are like, hey, you should get your butt going and start your personal brand opportunity. Right. Mm-hmm. So what about all the social handles? Anything particular that you engage with more? I know they'll be on the show notes, but just out of curiosity.
I'm at Jeremy Ryan Slate in all platforms, and LinkedIn is where I spend the most time. So if they really want to find me on LinkedIn. Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for jumping on the show today. We'll have to go. You say you were at the Packer game at freaking at the Giants game.
Snowing at Giants Stadium yesterday was amazing.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever coming to Lambeau, I'm your guy. I'll hook you up. All right.
I own 1 share. I get to vote in the board of directors every year.
Yeah, me and everybody else. I don't know if I can cash that in ever. Did that go up in value?
So I have my stock certificate on the wall, and it doesn't get dividends. It doesn't grow in value, but it's kind of cool to say you own the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a sport. You can put that in your marketing thing, right? Your PR, right in your Instagram header, owner of the Packers, right? Well, hey, seriously though, dude, if you're ever in the area, I'll take you to a Packer game. I've broken a lot of people's Lambeau virginity. I don't know if you've been there yet or not, but
I have for as long. I've been a Packers fan since I was like 4, and I've still never been to that stadium. So have to get to Lambeau one day.
Yeah, so I'll hook you up with tickets if you ever need to, man. If you're ever in the area. But with that said, folks, thank you so much once again, Jeremy. Thank you for jumping on the podcast. This was Winners Wallets World Views. You can go to our Facebook group, Winners Wallets World Views. We're just starting that out, so we want to communicate and connect with you there. We can promote ideas or guests or anybody else you want to connect with. And all of Jeremy's information will be in the show notes. So thanks so much, everybody. Be somebody. What's up, everybody? This is your host, AJ Armstrong. You can follow me on Instagram at AaronArmstrong33. That's Aaron Armstrong or you can go to my website, aaronjarmstrong.com. Thanks so much for listening through to the end. I wanted to also introduce you guys to our Facebook community. So you can go to Winners Wallets Worldviews on Facebook, and it's a group where we can offer, different opportunities for you guys to ask questions. If you have a Q&A or something in your business or a challenge in your life that you want to bring up, that's the community to ask it. And then I can also share that with all of our listeners on our social media platforms. The final thing I wanted to share with you guys is something that Marissa and I have been so excited for. It's been really chomping at me to freaking tell you guys. And it's our Personal Growth Ventures Retreat. So our Personal Growth Ventures Retreat is going to be located on the island of St. Lucia. It's going to be a business seminar combined with personal growth and development. And we're also adding in something nobody else has ever done in a seminar that I've heard of. And that's fitness and adventure. So these are the things that are going to help push us to our limits. It's going to help us break through our fears. And these adventures are going to be one of a kind. If you want to find out more about what our adventures entail, what's going to be involved in the education session, and where this is all going to be happening and when, you can go to our website, personalgrowthventures.com. That's personalgrowthventures.com. It's also going to be located in the show notes. So with that said, guys, thanks so much for listening through to the end. Once again, go be somebody.